Hi, Marshall. Hi, Bruce. Hi, Chanel. How are you? Hello, can you
Hi,
guys hear me?
Marielle. Yes, hi.
Hi. It's almost Friday, so that's always good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, hello, Marielle. Hello, everybody. It's Marshall.
How are you, Marshall? How are things?
Oh, everything's all right.
Good to
Sorry I
hear.
don't sound so enthusiastic, though.
Hey, Marshall, you getting your scaffolding down?
Well, some of it's supposed to be coming down, as I understand it, but I mean, you get what you get when you get it around here, so.
So the article that Daryl sent out said you were one of the, I don't know, $111 million investment to tear down scaffolds. Yours has been up since 2015?
You know, it's been up a while. And,
2015 is a while, man.
so,
It's a while.
I mean, if you say it is, then fine. I mean, I don't really recall them being down. And how should I say, if you put up some razor wire and you had some people running around with some wands, I mean, you think it was some sort of correctional facility or something like that.
Yeah, sorry to hear that.
You say Daryl had an article. Can you share it with me?
Yeah, he emailed everybody on the committee a bunch of articles about workplace policy, NYCHA policy, about heat, and there was one in there. He just sent it out today. Renovations, scaffolding, Inwood. You should have checked your email from Daryl. If you don't have it,
It
all.
looks like Daryl missed him. So I'm going ahead to forward. Yeah, I just checked. I'm forwarding it now to you, Marshall. It's as Bruce mentioned, it's a series of articles. And one of the articles includes something about the Dykeman houses and the scaffolding. So I'll send you, you'll have.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at my email now. I don't see it.
Look for one from Ariel.
Be there to you momentarily. We're still waiting for a couple of committee members. It's still not 7 yet, so we still have a few more minutes. But
Let me see. Let me go to my others.
I just sent it now, so it might show up now because it looks like he accidentally missed you on the email chain.
Oh yeah, I knew someone was missing. I couldn't remember who.
Hi, Daryl. How are you?
Actually, not well.
Oh no.
I'm gonna stay off camera most of the time. All of a sudden, like the past couple hours have been horrific, but I'll be here.
Sending you positive vibes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Did you get it, Marshall?
Well, what I'm looking at is some gender-based violence workplace policy.
That's it. That's the beginning of it. There's a number of documents there. Yeah.
see, it says Dykeman Nightshade Building getting scaffolding shed removed.
Daryl, question,
Mhm.
what number is quorum? Because I know Angel sent me a message. He's unable to make it due to a work conference. But I'm trying to know how many people we have in total in the committee. I
I
always
think it was-
forget.
Felt like it was high last time for some reason.
Let me see if I can pull up the list.
Yeah.
Second. Or Chanel, if you have that probably more easily than we do, please let us know.
Okay, I'll look for it.
Thank you.
We have 11 members, so we need 6.
There's only 4 of us unless you want to include Chanel in our committee.
Wish we could. Oh. I had no idea the powers of a hot water bottle, but it's good.
On your head or where?
On my head, on my face. You know?
God, I haven't used, is it a big red rubber thing?
It's like that, yeah.
I haven't seen one of those in years.
Oh, let's see.
Edda's here. Hi, Edda.
Here, you can see it's
Oh,
in a
it's
little
very cool.
cozy. Yes.
I gotta remember that.
It's good for sinus pain. I'll say that.
Yeah, okay.
I wish I didn't have sinus pain, but
Yeah, I wish you didn't either.
So they sell these like headache compression things that you put on your head if you have like really bad headaches. And I've been considering
Oh.
ordering one. They look ridiculous, but apparently they're really good.
as long as it works, right?
We're at 6. We're at
Okay, it
6.
looks like we're at-
Yeah, we're at
Yes.
6.
We are at 6. Wonderful. Great. So let's go ahead and get started then. Good evening, everyone. I hope you are all well. I will be supporting Daryl and chairing for this evening. Hi, Richard. Good evening. Hope you're all doing well. Firstly, thank you to Bruce for chairing last morning, really your support there, especially during a kind of, hefty topic in terms of the kind of the budget rankings and so on. So thanks again for your support on that. Before we get started with the agenda for tonight's meeting, I'll call for at 7:05 p.m. Can I get a second?
I'll second it. This is Etta.
Great, thanks, Etta. Wonderful. Would someone like to volunteer and take notes for tonight's meeting, please? We'll need someone to take the minutes.
I'll do it from the recording.
Definitely do it from the recording. That's the only way I would tell you to do it from the
Yeah,
recording.
But I have to say that the
Wonderful.
YouTube transcription of the recording into text took about an hour and a half last time. But I just go through and listen to it. I'll do it. Thank you.
Thank
It's
you,
weird
Bruce.
listening
Really
to yourself, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is weird. There's been a few times I have to do minutes, and it's a bit odd. Thank you, Bruce, for that. Great, and good evening, Michelle. Good to have have you on. So agenda for
Hey.
the meeting, Daryl did share, Daryl shared that via email as well as, in our calendar, in the emails that we received from the office. So we'll start off with the budget rankings recap. We'll then go on to discussion on regular guests. We'll move on to community health profile and city planning committees, community profiles, rates among city agencies, climate change, new business. So with that, we'll go ahead and start with the budget rankings recap. So again, thank you everyone for your work on that last month. I've actually just pulled up. Let me see. If
I have it in
find
front of
it.
me.
Oh, wonderful. Do you want to kick off, Daryl?
Yeah,
on
yeah,
it? And then
sure.
I can maybe
I just wanted to highlight, and for those who joined a little late, I'm sorry I'm off camera. I'm not feeling well. But there were on our capital budget rankings of the 6, 3 of them were in the top 11. So that's really exciting. Basically in order of our first, second, and third picks, or actually no, it's a little reversed, first and second. But the 7th ranking for the full board was our second ranking, which was provide increased funding for housing at risk and transitioning individuals and families. The 8th ranking for the board overall was our first pick, which was provide funding for the construction of affordable, accessible housing for seniors. And then our third pick was the 11th pick overall for the board, which was provide funding for the construction of 100% permanent long-term affordable housing units based on the average median income to nonprofits, community land trusts, land banks that are partnered with nonprofit developers. And can anyone recall, I always forget this, on the capital budget, like kind of what the cutoff is for us, the number? We did get the 26th, 32nd, and 37th ranking of the full board too, with the rest of our rankings. And then with the expense budget, we got 3 of the top 5. So I don't know if that's a record for the committee, but that's really good. The second ranking overall for the board was our second ranking, which was provide more funding for food pantries. The 4th ranking for the board overall was our first choice, which was increase funding for free legal representation in housing court and increase the eligibility criteria for receiving services to 300% from 200% to the federal poverty level. And then the 5th ranking overall was our third, which was provide more funding for the home-based program in CB12 to prevent individuals and families at imminent risk for entering the New York City shelter system. The other 4 of our rankings came in 41st, 33rd, 30th, and 52nd, respectfully. So I think that was really good overall. Did anyone have any
Daryl? Yeah, I
thoughts or comments on that? Or
We got a lot of work ahead of us.
yes. So now that will go to Ebenezer and the staff to pull all together from the various committees and give to the new administration.
Thanks, Daryl. And I would say just kind of on reflection from last year's rankings, I noticed that a lot of our items also ranked quite high as well, particularly the funding for food pantry and funding for kind of more legal representation. That's high. I don't remember the exact rankings, but I do recall it. They also ranked quite high amongst the entire community board, which is good to see. I think, like you said, now kind of the real work begins to see this actually, what's the implementation? Let's see where that actually goes. Great. So I'll leave it with you, Daryl, because I know that you've put in a couple of things here on the agenda. So you have here, unless anyone else has any points on the budget rankings recap.
And certainly if there are other agenda items, we can always add that to the end as well. So.
For sure, for sure. Okay, doesn't seem as if anyone else has any points on this, but you did add on here discussion on regular guests. So I'll turn it over to you, Daryl, for that.
Sure. Yeah. In the previous committees I've served on, I realized that we had like consistent guests almost at every meeting. I know at Health, we have Columbia Presbyterian as well as the Medical Center. And then in Parks, we have the Parks department come every time, as well as some of the main arts groups in the area. So I was just wondering if there are any such groups that we should be inviting to come and update us. Some of the ones that came to mind, and this just is a list off the top of my head, was the leadership of the Armory Homeless Shelter, the NIMIC, Workforce One, the HRA Intake Center up at 216, NYCHA Dykeman Houses, which I know we have a representative here, Cloth, DWDC, Inwood Community Services, and I'm sure there are more. But I was just wondering, particularly from longtime members, if there's any individual or institution that we should be bringing on a regular basis to these meetings.
Daryl,
Yes.
I think that's a good list. It's very much a housing list. And that's fine. We're also human services though. And my thought would be, rather than trying to add to who we invite to every meeting, that we set up a couple meetings where we hear from human services providers focusing on youth services or mental health or any of a number of groups. The list itself is a little long to start by inviting people to every meeting, though they're certainly welcome. But I think if we did some analysis of what's happening in the community, maybe that leads us to what's working, what there's more need for, et cetera. That'd be a second process, but also a very good thing.
Yeah, thank you, Richard, and for your thoughtful comment. And it's I certainly wasn't suggesting we invite all of them all the time, for sure. But I think too, our committee kind of walks a fine line, because when it comes to so many human services, you have places like Isabella, which is health related, aging related. You talked about youth. Well, we have a youth committee, so and certainly there's always opportunities to have joint meetings, but that's a little more rare, I suppose. But so yeah, that was just my thought on that.
Daryl, if I may, I know something that we did, I think it was either the May or June meeting, we walked through with Ariel, the previous chair, through the what came out of the Inwood rezoning. And there are really like a number of different commitments that were either stalled or in progress or haven't even started. And something that I think a good number of the members, including myself, talked about was just following up on that. And that could also be a really good starting point as well for inviting speakers. So looking at it and saying, okay, where are the different agencies that are responsible for that process? And really have them come to the and about, okay, well, this is what you said you were going to do. How is it going? What's happening? And so on. And part of that is not just, it's mostly housing, but if I recall, there were also some kind of stuff on the human services side as well. So I definitely recommend that we revisit that.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Especially, I feel like a lot of that with the rezoning is moving now, so yeah, we should definitely be updated on that. I did see some raised hands.
Yeah, so in regards to the Inwood rezoning, was supposed to be a task force that was supposed to consist of a collective of members from the board and some community members, stakeholders in the community as well. I'm not sure where that is at this point. We had a number of votes, at least two, if I remember correctly, in regards to what's supposed to happen with that. But I would think that that committee would probably be doing that kind of work of keeping track of what those commitments are and what's happening with them. And then reporting back to our committee. And then I think what was said was when they report back to us based on whatever the need is, then we would take positions where necessary to push those out. So I don't know how that factors in.
No, that's a good reminder. And we don't have that yet, that committee, that the ad hoc committee.
Yeah, there's actually a lot that we don't have that should have been in progress for a while that many of us on the board have been advocating for years. And yeah, we don't have them.
Yeah. Well, I know if I recall, there was, talk about maybe having at least one person from each committee, and also favoring those who actually live in Inwood.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. Maybe let me talk to Ally and the executive board to see if there's movement on that.
Thanks for that helpful reminder, Aisha. Bruce?
Yeah, to Aisha's point, does it take a resolution? And do we need to do one to kind of prod the executive committee to make this new task force happen? I don't know the protocol.
We already have voted on it as part of the issue. And it's part of the reason why I put forward the resolution to track our activities as a board on a whole, but that would also include the responsibilities of the chair, because it would basically follow anything from inception, from the point that it arises on whatever level, in committee, in executive, wherever, and follow whatever that is to completion. And then to possible delivery when it comes to whoever is responsible to it from the city. We don't have that. I'm not sure why for all these decades that doesn't exist, because how does anything function without that kind of accountability? But we have, what I experienced as chair was many times the balls were dropped. Whether it be a resolution leaving committee, never making it to the general, whether it be a ratified or a resolution that should be ratified, never actually gets printed and sent out. And then even once it's printed and sent out, nobody's following up to make sure that any electeds are held accountable to respond to us about what their thoughts are, even in regards to those things. And it's a lot of effort on the part of all of us that goes into these things. It's kind of haphazard not to have that kind of responsibility.
And I think there's definitely an opportunity there too, with the new administration coming in. I mean, I think whoever the new, DOB and, all the different agencies that are involved in a rezoning effort, they should all come to us within the first 3 months. That's my feeling on it, because it is the major rezoning in the borough at this time.
Right, but Aisha's point is we're not doing our job following up with what we want to do and bringing people in. Who keeps track of all this stuff? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I certainly know when I served on health, our scope was very limited. If something was being demolished or whatnot, we cared about making sure that was done in a safe way with, DEP and what other agencies. But what was built on top of it, once it was cleaned up, that was, not our scope. But I think every committee is going to have to pay more attention to
The other thing is,
our desires. And say that again. Sorry.
sorry. No, I didn't. I thought you were done. I'll wait.
No, I am. Go ahead.
The other thing is there was the resolution in regards to inclusion. And the letter that was put out by the borough president, and a lot of discussion surrounding that ended in saying that we should have a task force or committee that basically is responsive to the needs of not just the bylaws, but a space for board members to be able to bring any other issues that don't fit in the committee on the committee level. And not every member is a member of the executive committee board. And so they don't have the opportunity to weigh in there on things that happen. And that hasn't come to fruition either. There's a lot of things that we are remiss in as a board. I'm supposed to be a member of the IT committee. I was the former chair of the IT committee. I've yet to receive one form of communication about anything happening ever in years. It's problematic.
My understanding, though, of the executive board, and maybe folks have other experiences, is that any board member can come and share thoughts or ideas to them, especially in those instances where maybe it doesn't fit neatly in a committee. You have the committee chairs right there. And I think if folks don't feel welcome, or if I'm mistaken in part of that purpose of those meetings, then we should make it known that there should be a space for that.
My experience with that is that it's hit or miss and seemingly selective on the part of those who are participating. Sometimes you might be able to, other times not. But we should have a rule that is consistent across the board that everyone could adhere to, that the members, that speaks to the spirit of what we feel as a board it should be. And not, decisions being made unilaterally by, individual members of our board. That is by law.
Yeah. I see Marshall has his hand up.
Yeah, going back to Aisha's point about these meetings, I do recall that coming up in one of our earlier meetings. But now I was wondering though if it's being raised about this inward task force that Gail Brewer started up, because there was maybe one meeting of that I went to. We did do a walkthrough of the district as far as the different sites that they were supposed to be working on. And I don't know how it's going to work, because there is a meeting next week with this, but with Gail Brewer moving out of office, I don't know if this is going to continue, but I don't know. Is this apples and oranges that I'm raising here? I'll leave it like that.
Yeah, you raise a good point. It's we should have involvement. You were at the last meeting, you said, or you just know what happened? Oh, you're muted. Sorry.
Yeah, I was at the last meeting, and there was a walkthrough. I forgot what month it was. We started up by the Manhattan Bridge, walked through, went by sort of roamed on the back of 9th Avenue, different lots where projects were, came back on, Broadway, where I remember Muzzy.
Oh yeah, Rosenblatt.
Yeah, we went by his site, saw where they were going to do the shelter project, and there's supposed to be, accommodation for the for the burial ground that's there, whatever. And like I said, there is supposed to be another meeting next week on the 10th, but I don't know how or if this is going to continue. I mean, I guess Tim Anderson, and let's see, what is he? I don't quite see it. I think he's some sort of urban planner for our district, maybe another district. And he seems to be chairing this. But like I said, it's who's to say this is going to continue with the change in seats?
Now, do you plan on going?
Yeah, it's a Zoom meeting.
Oh, okay, good. I mean, I would hope that the fact that Mark, the new borough president, will, he's from up here, sort of. He at least knows the concerns of our community board. Would continue that effort. But yeah, maybe the next meeting will shed light on that.
Yeah, I think part of Mark's platform was about revising community board functions. So I think he is going to be paying a lot of attention, if not that he already has been.
And we talk about the accountability too, and it's there's the transition happening now, but in a few years there will be a transition happening on the community board once term limits kick in too. So we need to keep that continuity going.
Yeah, isn't that upon us? Aren't we supposed to be doing nominations and?
I think we still have a few years
So,
left.
yeah, that'll be coming around shortly, but I do just kind of want to bring us back on task.
No,
or
it's
back to the duties.
Thank you, Maria. But it is every year that we do
Yes.
elections.
No, for sure. And so, and the reason why I mentioned that is because that will be coming around soon.
Okay.
Because the nominations committee has already been formed. So
Okay.
you should be receiving some communication on that for sure. Just really quickly though, there's someone, we have a community member that wants to ask a question. And I'm just trying to figure out when's the most appropriate time to allow our community member to ask the question. Maybe a new business, or I don't know. There's just a question.
I'm assuming it's on this
Unaware.
topic, so I don't know if
Let me ask
Chanel, can you-
Sonia, if you wouldn't mind just typing in the Q&A what your question is related to, and then we'll go ahead and unmute you so that you can ask your question. Great. Okay. So I think, unless there's anything else, we'll wait till Sonia responds. On this topic, we can probably move on to the next agenda point, which is, sorry, like I have like so many screens open. Community health profile. Okay, Sonia wants to raise a point on Dad's housing issue, interrelated with DOT as well. Maybe we can take that in new business then, so that's a little bit separate.
That sounds good.
Is that all right? Okay, Sonia, so we'll definitely go ahead and give you an opportunity to ask your question later on in the meeting. Thanks so much for joining tonight. Okay, great. Okay, so moving on then, we do have a community health profile and city planning community profile. So Daryl, over to you.
Yeah, is there, I'm just looking, oh, I'm gonna try sharing my screen. Let's see. One sec. Oh, there it is. Can folks see that?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And actually that wasn't the first one. I want to go to. I think folks may be familiar with the community health profiles that are done. Doesn't seem that they're done every year, because I know the latest one that I could find was from 2018. Sorry, I'm just getting some material. There were a few things I think that are really related to our committee. One, when it comes to poverty. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through this. Oh, okay. Yeah, this is it. It talks about, the economic stress about poverty, unemployment, and rent burden. Because this is from 2018, I really just ignored the unemployment, because obviously that has changed tremendously just since then. Though it would be interesting to see what the numbers are if any entity has updated ones. But just looking at this, of the poverty level, the percent of residents that live in poverty, you can see it in New York City overall, it's 20%. In our neighborhood, it's 20%. And in the borough, it's 14%. And then the rent burden, the percent of renter occupied homes. And I know there's another terminology with rent burden that means something else, and we can talk about that later. But in this case, just in terms of the number of renters, basically, citywide, it's 51%. In our neighborhood, it's 53%, slightly higher, but significantly higher than our borough, which is 45% overall. And again, this is from 2018. See if there are any other. Oh, this as well. And this, may relate some of it to the health committee, but I really think, being specific to housing, it's something that should concern us. And these are the air conditioning units and the percentage of folks in the neighborhood that have working air conditioners. And in the city, it's about 89%. In our neighborhood, it's 90%. And in the borough-wide, it is 93%. So pretty much all up there. But, it's interesting, 10% of folks don't have air conditioners that are there or working. And I think, especially come summer, it'll be here before we know it. I think that's something that maybe we can get that number a little more consistent with the rest of the borough. Let's see.
There are programs that I believe help people get air conditioners, if not get a discount on air conditioners. And there's also programs to swap out if you have an older air conditioner that's not energy compliant, then you can upgrade it. And so maybe we can pull in those resources to provide for people.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Just to have, a clearinghouse of resources for folks to that can reach out, or maybe, we could even have, some of the local businesses, pitch in as well. If they're able, at some point, I guess in April or May. Also on the same page, homes without maintenance defects, that is citywide 44%. In our neighborhood, 33%. and in the borough, 48%. So there's a significant difference with maintenance upkeep of our the buildings in our neighborhood. So I really wonder what can help bring that number in line more with the city number, with the borough number. And is that some sort of programs with supers, landlords? What is it that can help drive that number in the right direction?
I think a big part of that is the issues with HPD, DOB, and the inspectors. It's part of the reason why annually we've included asking for more funding for more inspectors in our budget rankings, because there's not sufficient amount of inspectors to go out to address the amount of disrepair and dilapidation that exists for these concerns. Another part of that is because of lack of reporting on behalf of some of the tenants. There was a study that came out about that at one point. I suggested in the past, and it's actually something that as in my final year of being chair, we were looking to have discussions about all the work that needs to be done to revamp HPD or DOB so that they could be more efficient in serving our communities. I think an example of how that could work is dual certification instead of single certification when it comes to repairs. Currently, what happens is you report that you have an issue with a repair. The landlord is supposed to do it. The landlord does or does not do it, but pretty much it lands on the landlord or the inspector to come back to say, oh yeah, this was done. But if you have dual certification, the landlord could say, yeah, I did this. And then the tenant could say, yeah, he did this, or they did this. And there's not that there would be no need for an inspector to come back, but it could lower the urgency for that need for the inspector to come back and allow inspectors to then therefore go to things that are more urgent, so that, it kind of leverages out the workforce in that way.
Because if the resident is satisfied, that's really the main point.
Exactly.
Assuming it's not structural and something they may be unaware of. That's a very good point. But I also wonder what drives the lack of maintenance in these situations. Is it neglect by landlords and supers? Is it, are they don't have enough money? They don't, what are the overarching issues, related to that?
I've seen a gamut, everything from these buildings are old. We live in a community where a lot of the housing is pre-war. The building that I'm sitting in right now has been here since 1920. And there are buildings that are older. So, but there's one specific case that I advocated for a tenant on. The landlord had not done repairs for 40 years. She had children in the home. There were gaping holes in the walls while she had small children, and the apartment had lead in it. But the landlord was reporting otherwise to the agencies. And so it's lack of supports from the agency side. It's landlords sometimes, undermining the system because it is a monetary thing, because it is an expense that they are responsible for in many of these cases. Yeah,
it would be nice to get, HPD staff here once they're in place in the new administration to talk about this. And then,
So- Go ahead, Daryl.
I was just going to say, and then moving to the next one, not a topic I like to talk about, but it's there and it's an important one, cockroaches. And you see the differences between the city overall, 23% of households reporting versus in the borough, 20%, in our neighborhood, 28%. So that is significantly higher than the borough average. I don't know if those are seasonal. I don't know. felt like I lived in an apartment where I saw them every day and I never reported it. Maybe little did I know back then.
Yeah, and the thing with that is having roaches ties to other things, like for instance, asthma. There's a higher instance of kids having asthma when there's roaches in the apartment. So there's a young lady that passed 15 years old in my building because of her issues with asthma, which also ties into the issues with pollution as well, but that's a whole other story. But yeah.
Yes. And I don't know if others experienced, I recently got slapped on my outside door by some agency, presumably, what our building rating is when it comes to some efficiency of something. I'm not really sure. And I know a few other friends in the neighborhood said they recently saw that too. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, you're probably referring to the energy efficiency rating. It's like a letter grade.
Yeah.
Talking
Yeah.
about how collectively for the building, how they're doing when it comes to energy savings, where you have, what do they call it? The vampire plugs where, it's kind of like sucking energy out and, things like that, people leaving lights on and things of that nature. But I wanted to raise a quick point. You briefly touched on kind of creating somewhat of a resource that we could share. And I wonder if the committee would kind of be open to doing something like going through, for instance, this community health profile, recognizing that, yes, the numbers are probably, very different now since this is from 2018. And but I would think for the most part, a lot of these issues still exist. We'll obviously have to see, again, kind of the more recent one when it does come out or if it's already out. And then maybe it's a matter of either one, putting together a town hall as the committee, kind of highlighting 2 or 3 of like the key issues that we see and bringing representatives, to speak on these issues and informing the community about what are some of the resources that they can tap into to be able to address some of the issues. Or it's maybe putting together, as you mentioned, Daryl, maybe it's like a worksheet or something like that, or a toolkit, so to speak, of just some resources that residents can have, because I think part of it is also just not knowing how to be able to raise these issues if community residents are experiencing some of these things.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I think that, would be helpful for folks, definitely. And, and I could speak to Steve, because I know he deals with the community health profile for some of the other things. And yeah, I think he'd be interested in that as well. And then there was just some brief things in the city planning. They have their own profiles of various districts. And where's some of the things that that stuck out of limited English proficiency, that seems to be covered for me, but it was, like 38% in our neighborhood, which is the 8th least overall. New York City as a whole is 23%, and Manhattan is 16%. I mean, I know there are programs that many of the libraries have, and I think some of the other nonprofit organizations have. I don't know if we've supported those in the past, but it was just something of interest. And then
Daryl,
yes,
I'm gonna have to look into my records to see if I remember this woman's name. But now that I remember, Columbia University had a forum here in the Vagelos building on Haven Avenue, where one of the commissioners or deputy commissioners from DOH spoke, and they mentioned the profiles, and I mentioned that that the board uses them. And she was talking about the work that goes into producing them, and that it requires people to be engaged and be a part of it. And I mentioned to her that maybe there's a partnership that could be struck with the community board to help aid in that effort. Maybe that is part of the reason why the last one we see is 2018, is because of whatever limitations they have.
And I had seen the health profile before, and I want to say they used to come out every year. So
Yeah.
the fact that there hasn't been one recently is concerning.
I mean, it could be the pandemic also.
Could be the pandemic. Yeah, they had other things going on.
Sure.
But yeah. And just the last matrix was also the poverty level, which we kind of discussed in the other one. Slightly different numbers depending on how they're measuring it, but you can see in our neighborhood we're actually slightly below what the city as a whole is facing, but with our borough we're considerably higher poverty rate than the rest than lower Manhattan. But that was really it. I mean, it's nothing really for a resolution. It's really just to think about, talk about. I like your idea, Aisha. Once there's new administration in place, if they do plan on doing these profiles again, hopefully they will reach out, or we can reach out and work with them. And also to see if there are any other, areas or topics that we would like to know that they could measure.
I just wanted to add that when it comes to some of these numbers, like specifically the rent burden, affordability and things like that, I think it should be a part of our consideration that as new people are added to our district, and the community changes, the average or the median will reflect something different because it's considering the whole and weighing everyone in the balance. But for some people in our community, their situation, that when it's trending towards the bottom, has not changed, but the numbers can make them invisible. So that's a concern that I've always had, because I started to see that change happening. There was an article that came out a few years ago. I think City College was a part of it, basically saying like 12,000 Latinos had been eliminated from our community, and what contributed to that. So that even and what who they're being replaced by, and so there were people that, especially because of the pandemic as well, there are pressures that people are experiencing. But if you have populations moving in that have higher incomes and they're moving into our communities because our community is more affordable than some other places, it can hide some of the people experiencing grave issues. So
yeah, no, that's a very good point. I think I may not use the word eliminated. I would say maybe moved out of the neighborhood.
Yes, better wording is always good. Yeah.
I hope no one was eliminated, but yeah, I mean, I think we saw in the census and just from the surface that the community as a whole is slightly less Hispanic, slightly more white, slightly older than 10 years ago. And how will that impact services and needs of the neighborhood? Yeah, I think that's interesting.
Great. Thank you, Aisha, and thank you, Daryl. It definitely sounds like we have kind of some good points in terms of follow-up for that. And I would echo Daryl's point in regards to if you're able to find that contact, Aisha, and that we can support them, the new administration comes in. If there are no other points on this, we can move on to the next agenda item. It's among city agencies. Daryl, over to you again.
Your audio cut out a bit. What was it? Oh, the vaccine thing?
Vaccine rates, yep, among
Okay.
city agencies.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on this briefly. And this was, I think, the last page in that document that I sent around, or last 2 pages. Oh, here it is. Sorry, I'm missing a page. At the top, it has the total city workforce, and it really goes 3 dates, October 19th, October 30th, and November 2nd, just a couple days ago. And obviously, if you've been paying attention to the news, you know that the mayor is mandating that city workers get vaccinated with few exemptions. And so you see the numbers go up considerably in the last, was it 2 weeks, basically, and going from as a whole from 84% to 92%. In the mayor's office, so a lot of the maybe smaller little agencies that he funds went from 96 to 97%. It was pretty much most people are already vaccinated. And then in the green, there were some just of note. I thought, that we hear about some of the larger agencies, some that we deal with, more frequently. So DOE, DOHMH, Health and Hospitals, you see they were already in the mid 90s and maybe went up to the upper 90s. NYPD on the second part of the last page went from 70% to 85% vaccinated. FDNY as a whole went from 60% to 81%. Some would suggest those two still aren't high enough. But then in the pink, I looked at some of the agencies that our committee touches on.
Darrell, I don't think we're seeing your screen.
Oh,
I don't.
it was in the thing I emailed.
Oh, okay. No, I thought you were referring to something on the screen. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, sorry. But HPD does very well. They went from the low 90s to the upper 90s in a couple weeks. DOB went from the low 80s to the low 90s. But, it's really, I think, interesting that HRA was at 73% a couple weeks ago. Now they're at 91%. Department of Homeless Services was at 67% and are only at 83%. And NYCHA staff is the second lowest overall. They were just at 59% a couple weeks ago. And now they significant increase, but they're still at 81%. So it's really a lot of staff that work in the NYCHA complexes, a lot of staff that are working at the Armory's homeless shelter and other shelters in the area. I just think it's interesting to note that for us, and I don't know if anyone has opinions on that, but I really think these low rates of vaccination are harmful to residents of NYCHA and residents of the homeless shelter system.
Any indication as to why those are the lowest?
I haven't heard. I think FDNY and NYPD and Department of Corrections have really been sucking up a lot of that oxygen. But we're not hearing about NYCHA workers as much, or homeless shelter workers.
Well, I think Marshall is here, but I think historically, for whatever reason, NYCHA seems to fall in the shadows when it comes to what needs to be addressed. So for me, this is just another example.
Yeah. You unmuted, Marshall. Was there something you wanted to add?
Well, not exactly, but I am disturbed about this, and my executive board is meeting this weekend, and I think that's going to be one of my topics to raise.
Good. And, obviously, these numbers are NYCHA overall. Couldn't tell you specifically what the numbers are for the people that work at Dykeman houses. Don't know. I don't even know if we'd be able to get that if we wanted to, but yeah.
Yeah, but that's a fair drill down as far as what I saw and what the management team here has to say for themselves.
Yeah, we'd be definitely interested to hear next meeting if they have any thoughts or explanations for that.
And Daryl, and I don't remember all of what the sites are, but it's not just Dykeman, but 99 Fort Washington, where the senior center is NYCHA. So is there's I think something on Amsterdam. I don't have it in front of me.
I think
But
there's
yeah.
a few smaller ones. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some satellite sites, I
Mhm.
guess you would say.
Daryl, thank you so much for sharing this.
Mhm.
And so building on this conversation, and I'm getting the dreaded sign that says that my internet connection is unstable. So apologies if I break out of, I might have to turn off my video for bandwidth. So, I mean, I think as you mentioned, we've all seen in the news kind of also concerns about, just different services that we all rely on in regards to kind of the vaccine mandates and things like that. I just wanted to kind of maybe have a few minutes of a conversation around that and kind of the impact that we have seen or are anticipating to see in our neighborhood, but then also kind of what is the feedback that some of us on this call are hearing from our fellow neighbors regarding this. Did you catch that? Sorry, because I know I'm having
Oh
internet
yeah, no,
issues.
yeah, I heard. No, yeah, I'm
Okay.
interested that if folks, if folks have heard anything or, I didn't. I saw something briefly today where there was some sort of agreement with unions, and then also I don't know if folks caught. I believe the mayor-elect made a comment that things might change when it comes to this issue of vaccine mandates, but didn't say anything specifically. But nonetheless, I mean, there's still low vaccination rates in some places that directly serve the public, and it's disturbing.
Just quickly, I found a listing on Wikipedia, however accurate that is, that says that there's 5 sites, seemingly with the total number of apartments of about 1,000 altogether. No, not including Dykeman houses. So probably roughly 3,000 apartments is what I could gather. Just to put it on record.
And Marshall, do you have a sense of like how many people work at Dykeman?
Wow. I mean, staffing is down. I can't give you a real number, but my guesstimate would be maybe I wouldn't say tops 15, 20.
Yeah.
I mean, and then I'll stick with that, maybe 15, 20, but I might be overestimating with that because they're short-staffed. They're supposed to be doubling up on the buildings. I mean, and a lot of stuff is just not getting done.
Yeah. I will say, speaking of NYCHA, you saw there was the article about the scaffolding shed being removed. And it was there, I think the article said 5 years.
Feels like longer.
Well, it's
I was
exciting
about
that
to
it's
say the
gonna
same
be.
thing.
I wonder, it doesn't say when though, I don't think.
I mean, I was in a meeting with the executive board and the management team in the last 2 weeks. And the thing that struck me about the article is like, what's that marketing term? Sell the sizzle, not the steak. Because
That's it.
because as we were talking about scaffolding, which has been something that's been going on with our board and the management team for some time, there seem to still be other issues in play because I guess the main point with the scaffolding going up was with the HUD and I'm having a senior moment here as far as the overseeing the that they had installed, that the courts had installed. So there are issues with some of the buildings as far as the brickwork and all this stuff. But then the issue of air conditioners came up, that some of the air conditioners weren't properly installed. And then there's, I guess, the procedure of calling in tenants and doing whatever. So, I mean, that takes time. So this whole thing about, you see an article, scaffolding is coming down, but then, but we got to procedurally see about these air conditioners before they get remove the scaffolding and all this. So, like I said, sell the sizzle, not the steak.
So cautious optimism. Well, and the other thing too, I wonder if not just for NYCHA, but for any buildings. I know the as you could see if you went outside today, it's cold season is here, it's upon us. And I wonder if has anyone heard of any of our neighbors not having adequate heat? Obviously they can complain, but if it's something that's not being addressed.
Not yet, but I have been watching the thermometer, waiting for it to hit that magic number that the landlord is obligated to put heat on. I think we've been throttling at about 55, which is the number. So further notice when it
I want to
gets
say mine's been on for a couple of weeks.
Really? Good for you.
Not strong, but it's there. What was next, Miriam? I forget.
Yep. So the next point, and thanks again for having this conversation. It's quite important. Climate change, and I'm assuming this is probably in reference to the email I sent you, Daryl.
That is you. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how in depth you want to get, but I know you have some great ideas to.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and thanks for putting it on the agenda. So yes, some of you may have heard me speak about this at the general board meeting a couple of weeks ago. Not even a couple of weeks, so last week. It feels like a really long time ago. But anyway, yes. So as I mentioned, I think we're all well aware of the impact of climate change, not just, in the past few years, but I would even, say the past couple of decades. And we're seeing the ramifications of it more and more, especially right here in our own community. I mean, we can think back to, some of like the torrential downpours that happened not that long ago, where some of our neighbors were impacted in Inwood, or the fact that the 157th Street train station was flooded and actually kind of went viral when I saw. I was like, oh, that's my train station. Yeah, and so there is a need for us to build a more climate resilient community, and something that that isn't just focused on the environment. I think when we think about climate change, it's something that needs to be holistic, something that really includes every aspect of society. And so what I would like to do is kind of working in conjunction with our committee and the Health and Environment Committee is put together some sort of a, whether it be a town hall. I think we're kind of still sorting what that looks like, but again, kind of sharing with all of you, because we'd love to have your input as well as we shape this collectively, because this should be a group effort, a committee effort, to really highlight a couple of aspects of how we can make Community Board 12 more climate resilient. And so this would be whether it's through looking at kind of green financing, whether it's looking at how we do things on the licensing committee. Are we now asking questions of our businesses about how they're being a bit more sustainable? How are we doing different things? And so it's very much in its preliminary stages, but just wanted to kind of plan that out there. And ultimately what we would like to happen coming out of this town hall, probably in January, February, would be a resolution that really, again, kind of calls on our elected officials, but also us as a community board to really take climate change seriously. It's impacting everyone, and I think we can all agree to that. So I'll pause there and see if anyone has any thoughts or ideas, or would like to kind of get a little bit more involved in some of the planning. We're trying to have a planning call session probably at some point next week or so, just to start brainstorming some ideas. Thanks.
I just want to say, I think that's a great idea. I've definitely been looking at changes. Like there's things that are happening that never would be happening here. I think we've had a near tornado, if not that we had a tornado. I know that we definitely saw winds that I never seen growing up here as a child, as well as the downpours and the flood. Like it used to be that our neighborhood was the place to escape to get away from some of those impacts, because we're the heights. And seemingly the hazards are creeping up on us now to where we are exposed. So I think that's definitely a good effort.
Thanks, Aisha. Similar to you, I also kind of, was born and raised here in this neighborhood as well. And kind of thinking back to, for instance, even not that long ago, Hurricane Sandy. I remember, when a lot of other neighborhoods throughout the city really had a huge impact. And, some of the train stations down in Lower Manhattan, for instance, were closed for quite some time because of the impact. And I recall, at least in our area, just getting some rain and some wind,
Right.
But you're exactly right. I mean, right now we really see it, and it's important to act. And I think, again, this also kind of comes on the back of the Conference of State Parties that's happening right now in Glasgow for climate. A lot of it is also what the Biden administration is doing on climate change as well. And so really the purpose of this is not just, making that connection from what's happening globally to what's happening right here in our own community, and recognizing that it's not just the leaders that need to do something, but also us right here in Washington Heights and Inwood.
And thank you. I mean, that was really comprehensive. I count myself lucky that, if there's ever flooding, I live a block away from that Rock. That's the highest natural point in Manhattan.
Oh.
So I know where I'm going.
Nice.
And me and all my neighbors too. But yeah, I mean, I think also just because it is such a pervasive issue and it will be an ongoing issue, it's really, I think, something that every committee should look through that lens in the work that they do, and determine its whatever they're thinking of, what its impact is on climate change. Because I think, even if you're talking about, seniors, if you're talking about school children, there are implications all around, not just, I think the obvious ones that are impacted by weather, so.
Mhm.
For sure. And I mean, I also add, there's obviously a really big part of environmental justice, that lens as well, where we know that communities like ours are unfortunately disproportionately impacted by the impacts of climate change. And so how then can we as a community kind of stand up and fight back against that?
So, and I just want to say that I think in this quote unquote climate politically, that this kind of work is so important because there are a lot of voices pushing in the opposite direction, basically trying to invalidate that this is even a concern. And then you have people like Congressman Louis Gromherd, I think Grommet, I think his name is, out of Texas, that said, all we need to do is change the moon's orbit to fix climate change as being an issue. And I'm sure that we can probably come up with some better solutions than that. So.
For sure. For sure. So yeah, I guess it's, this is really just a call if there's anyone who wants to kind of be more intimately involved in the planning of this, would certainly just, reach out. But also if you have any thoughts on what particular points, because again, there's so much that it touches on. And so we obviously are unable to touch on everything. So if there are kind of particular points of interest, just let me know and we'll be sure to kind of touch on that if we're able to. So I don't think there's anything more on this. So the next point we have is kind of new business. And I know we've had Sonia waiting. So if it's all right, we'll hear from Sonia first. And then if some of the committee members have comments or things to raise under new business, we can then take those. Is that all right with everyone?
If before she does, I found the name of the deputy commissioner from the Division of Epidemiology. Her name is R. Charon, Charon, last name Gwynn. And she was there under the topic Advancing Health Equity in New York City, Applying an Equity Lens to Data Practices. And that was February 19th, 2020. So maybe if we could have Ebenezer reach out to her office about what's happening. Maybe she may be able to give us more updated data than what's published currently.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. Thanks for finding that. We'll definitely have that as an action point for us. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. So moving on then to new business, Chanel, would you be able to, it looks like I can give Sonia talking privileges. 1 second. Sonia, we're going to turn it over to you. I'm just going to go ahead and unmute you, and you have 2 minutes for your question. Just 1 second. Sonia, you should be able to unmute and ask your question. Go ahead.
Okay, hi, my name is Sonia Figueroa Pagan, and I am a product of the Heights, lived there all my life, have my father currently living on 181st Street between St. Nicholas and Audubon Avenue, and he is an 88-year-old veteran, disabled, handicapped individual, and his privileges of having access from in front of his building to get into a vehicle has been removed by the new transit bus stop that's there that takes up the whole block between St. Nicholas and Audubon Avenue. I have been sending letters since June to all of the departments from the city up to Albany, and nothing has, no one has gotten back to me. And I'm really very concerned that my dad's mobility has been limited totally because he has no access in and out of his place of residence anymore because of the bus stop. So I am at your mercy in regards to who do I go to in regards to having at least a sign saying that it's okay for someone with a handicap plaque to stop there to load and unload. Because at this time, there's a no parking anytime, and I've already gotten a ticket.
Thanks, Sonia, for raising your question and concern with us. I'll open it up for the committee members to see if they have any thoughts and responses for Sonia to follow up with.
Yeah, that's a transportation and traffic issue, it sounds like, which I'm on the committee, and we can bring it up at the next meeting, Doctor. So
it's soon to be, Doctor.
okay,
I'm working on my dissertation.
great.
But
And
yeah,
I have your, please put your contact information in the chat, and so I can connect with Debbie Navabian, who is chair of the Traffic and Transportation Committee, and talk to MTA about that.
I have spoken to Debbie at least.
You have,
a dozen
okay.
times. Yeah.
I'm sorry. And you're
Yeah.
not getting it, you're not getting any
Nothing.
resolution?
Nothing. And I even went, after speaking to her, I went above her to the Department of Transportation, to MTA, to the borough president. Yeah, it's like, this is an issue. There are 3 buildings there, and none of them have access to coming in and out of a vehicle because all of that parking has been removed, and they have placed a no parking anytime signage on that street.
I'm just curious, what's the street again?
181st Street between St. Nicholas and Audubon Avenue.
Thank you.
You have 3 places of residences, and it's abusive. Honestly, it's a violation of, firstly, senior rights, and then secondly, individuals that are handicapped.
Yeah. And I know this is the purview of traffic and transportation, but I just want to put on the record that in this committee, some of the advocacy that was done was in relation to the Haven Plaza was related to the reduction of parking consistently over the years and how it impacts residents in their homes and in their lifestyles because of these types of impacts. Which include not being able to get home on time and some of what she's talking about. There were things that the Department of Transportation promised. I've seen them deliver on some of that, but unfortunately I've seen restrictions in other areas. And when I was doing my research, a ticket was being issued to every man, woman, and child in this district. The money that is being brought in just by ticketing people in our community, when this is some of what's happening, a lot of no parking signs, a lot of just areas where people have cars that they actually use. There's a lot of things that have been done to make it difficult for drivers. Some of these drivers need their cars. Some of them may be disabled. Some of them may be laborers that need their cars. And it affects their home lifestyle, most importantly, which is why it's important to housing as well. So
that's what I thought, because I pick up my dad. My dad requires 24/7, and I pick him up to take him to doctor's appointments, to food shop, just to get out of the apartment. And in all honesty, that has not been feasible since the summer, since they put this restriction on that whole block. Because with the
And
lack of
let me
parking,
ask,
with the lack of parking, I also have to park now like, 4 or 5 blocks away. And I'm okay doing that, but it's not fair to my father.
and let me ask, just so I'm clear of the need. So you need to park in front for 15, 20 minutes, get your dad,
Exactly.
bring him down. Okay,
I
and
just
in
need
that-
loading
in
and,
that
and
time-
unloading.
right.
That's all I need.
And have you been in contact with MOPD, the Mayor's Office of
I
People
have.
with Disabilities? Yeah, because
I
I wonder if they may interact with DOT. I don't know. Did they say anything or?
Nope. I contacted the Office of Disabilities at the mayor's. And, through the mayor's office, I contacted the disability office in Albany. I even went as far as Washington, D.C., in all honesty, because I think it's such a violation of his ability to have access and mobility.
Yeah, and also for the record, in the research and the advocacy that I was doing related to the Haven Plaza, we had service providers, and this falls on the human services side of things, where clients were getting a reduction in the hours that they were afforded, whether they be healthcare, whether they be for physical, that's all health, physical therapy, but other related services in the home. Their caretakers, because the caretakers driving around and around looking for parking, they get less hours delivered to them. In this case, it's this man's daughter, but in other cases, they're actual providers that are employed to allow these services. And they're not given extra time to look for parking. So, there's definitely impact.
And is there's no room between the bus and the sidewalk? The buses don't leave much room for a vehicle?
The whole street between St. Nicholas and Audubon has restriction on it. And it has signage that says no parking anytime. And when I tried just doing so to get my dad into the vehicle, I got a ticket. And there was no mercy.
Yeah,
And we have the handicap placard on the on the rear view mirror in the car, but there was no mercy.
Yeah, and to bring in some of the other things we've been talking about tonight, we talked about lack of appropriate amount of inspectors in the housing side of things for HPD and DOB. But when it comes to traffic cops, they descend on our community like roaches. When at certain times of the
I was
day,
just going to say, we want enforcement, greater enforcement in so many other areas, but where we don't want it, and now that they're, go crazy. And have you talked to Adonis's office?
I have exhausted my resources. I mean, I literally sat down and spent over $100 on return receipt requested mailage to these people, and nothing, no response. I meant to make it to the meeting on Monday, the Community Board 12 meeting on Monday, but things just became too complicated in my life and I was unable to do so. So I'm glad I was able to come to this evening's to at least express my concerns, my frustration.
Yeah. And Bruce, when is the next TNT meeting?
Well, it was Monday night, the next Wednesday. But I'm taking the minutes, so I will send Debbie an email saying we need to follow up on this. This is ridiculous. And you may want to talk to Robert Jackson's office too. I'm hate to add another thing for you to do, but if Adonis didn't do anything, maybe Jackson's people may be able to. I don't know.
That was the first office that I spoke to.
And he didn't do anything?
No. And I was even informed that because it was an election year, that not much was going to be accomplished.
I'm sorry to hear that.
It's not for him.
That was the overall statement that I received.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you bringing this to our attention, and I know a bunch of folks here will follow up in some fashion, and maybe we can come to a resolution. Obviously, there's no promises.
And Ebenezer in his district meeting, has he talked to DOT or about this at all? Do you know?
Are you speaking to me?
I don't know. I'm not sure who I'm asking.
I don't know. Presumably someone from DOT should be there all the time, but I don't know if he's brought up this issue.
Okay, well, we'll talk amongst ourselves and figure out how to try to get this resolved as soon as possible. It's really terrible.
I really appreciate any assistance because it's been ongoing and it's just getting worse. The more he stays locked in his apartment, the worse he's getting with his dementia.
Great. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Will anyone get back to me in regards to this or like?
We
You
have
have
your-
your contact info in there?
I did, I just typed it in.
Great. Yeah, someone will get back to you.
Thank you, Daryl.
Thank you, Sonia. As Daryl mentioned, someone will get back to you and hopefully we can support you in finding a resolution to this.
I appreciate it. And thank you for your service, guys.
Not a problem. Thank you. Okay, so we're still in new business and just wanted to see if anyone else from the committee has an item for new business.
Oh, I do. I'm not
Okay,
sure
Aisha.
if the community member is here. I did text her, but I believe she's a nurse, so, or no, I don't know, maybe it's her boyfriend that works for the hospital. Point is this, the building on 165th between Broadway and Riverside, because that's a long block, next to Wendy's, which is owned by New York Presbyterian Hospital, which is the office, which is the building that where the office for the tenants, the management office is. There are tenants that live there, one which has a disability and needs a ramp. I did see that they installed a ramp and I was like, oh, that's great that they did that. Come to find out, the ramp was installed and the railing that the tenant actually requires because of the nature of his disability was removed. So they actually put the railing on the wrong side and the ramp is also incomplete. And so it's kind of pointless. And apparently they've been advocating for it to be fixed for some time. His girlfriend says she pops in the office almost on a daily basis to say, what's up? Like, when are you guys gonna fix this? To no end. I met her working the election polls and someone connected me to her. I gave her the information to come tonight. I'm not sure if she was able to do that, but I did let her know that I would raise it because she wants to see what she can do to make sure that they complete this, because it's an inconvenience to her partner who is disabled. So I wanted to put that before the board. I honestly didn't know outside of, I think the Commission on Human Rights may have some space for advocating for that, but I wanted to put it before the rest of the committee to see your thoughts on what we could do to get NYP to move on that matter.
Yeah, I mean,
Thanks,
I'll just say
Aisha.
from,
Go ahead, Daryl.
I work for the City Commission on Human Rights, and yeah, I mean, this is an issue that we deal with frequently. I think for the agency, one of the issues is always what is, if you're asking for something, if you need something repaired, or what is the response of the landlord or business or whatever entity, and then in that case, if it's a negative response, and then that gives the attorneys at the agency more ammunition, so to speak, to go after them if it's something that should be fixed, if that makes sense. But and often in those cases, they don't you don't have to file a formal complaint. It's something you can go through like a pre-complaint process, and then hopefully the parties will just do it rather quickly rather than later.
Okay. Okay, so I'll definitely let her know that. I think she had some information she wanted to provide in that regard. But this is a start.
Mhm.
Thanks, Daryl. Michelle, I see that your hand is up.
Hi, sorry I've been kind of quiet. I'm usually getting my baby down for sleep at the beginning of the meeting, so I'm just usually listening in the first hour or so. My question is around composting, and I don't know if this falls within the purview of our committee or a different committee, so let me know. I signed up for composting through the Department of Sanitation, and they were sort of like, well, I guess more people need to sign up for there to actually be a composting route that would go through our neighborhood. And I just wanted to get more information from you guys on kind of what the status is of the composting program and if that's within the purview of our committee, and then kind of like what actions could we take on it.
My understanding is that falls under health and environment. Steve would know probably a lot about this issue. But I feel like someone else brought the same thing up recently too. Which is kind of disturbing if that's, people wanting it for their building, but then they're not able to accommodate it because they're saying there's not enough people asking for it.
There has to be like a set number, but it's like not clear how many or how long it would take, and it was just sort of like, well, you signed up, great.
It's like, do you want us to do this or not? Like,
yeah.
And
I wonder
you're
if
not
maybe
near one of the
Sally knows.
composting sites that takes in compost.
Right. Yeah. I know there's the site at the farmer's market up by Inwood on Saturdays. Sometimes it's hard for me to get there. So it's like, just like difficult holding on to a lot of compost in my home,
Yeah.
So, and like to some of the things that were brought up earlier about pests, like I live on Bennett and there's a large like rat population, a large rat problem, which I think could be made slightly better by people like in the community composting their food versus just throwing it into like the trash bag and the rats get at it.
Yeah.
Composting is definitely a rat preventer. That's one of their main. Yeah, our neighborhood's trying to do the same thing. It's kind of a catch-22. How many people is it going to take to get it? Well, let us know and then we'll tell you. It's ridiculous.
I wonder if that's something Ebenezer can bring up at the district service cabinet meeting I'm assuming it's Department of Sanitation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's through Department of Sanitation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like something we can
a lot of
ask them
people
to
are
bring forward.
That's a good Steve Simon question.
I'd also add Sally as well. I know that she's involved quite a bit on a lot of these issues, so she may know or have some insight as well on it.
It'll take some time out of your schedule if you would go that way. No, she's very passionate about it. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you for the resources. So maybe I should, what do you think? Maybe I should reach out to some of the other members you guys suggested, Steve or
Sally is probably one of the best person to contact.
Yeah.
Do you have her contact?
I don't think I have her I'll check the emails and see if I can reach out to her, because I think sometimes they have all of our emails on the.
I'm not sure if in the email she goes by Sarah. It's either Sarah or Sally, one or the other.
Fisher.
What's her last name?
Fisher.
Okay.
Fischer, I think. Not positive.
And Chanel, is there what's the best way to get items for Ebenezer to ask at the district service cabinet meeting?
I think you could just email him the items
Okay.
or talk to him on the phone, I guess.
And when are those meetings?
It's I believe it's every third Thursday of the month.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we still have a. Okay, good.
Okay, well, let me know if there's I'll reach out to Sarah and see kind of find out the update on it. And if I don't have her email, I'll reach out to somebody here.
Great.
Thank you.
Just a quick note, Fisher doesn't have a C in it.
Thank you.
Thanks for
She's only,
checking, Richard.
she's only a lake fisher, not a sea fisher.
But I'm.
Great. Is there anything else for new business?
I did get an email that I wanted to share late in the day right before I came home from BRC. Is that okay if I just read it? It's relatively short.
Of course, go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't have time to share it. I apologize. But it's just a good afternoon. Please see below from our CEO and President, Muzzy Rosenblatt, announcing next steps in our acquisition of the site on 3966 10th Avenue. As we move forward, you'll begin to get more information from us on key operational milestones and developments. We want to maintain a very open avenue of communication going forward, and your questions, feedback, and ideas are most welcome. Thank you, blah, blah, best, Miguel Guadalupe. And then the note from Muzzy is, dear friends, a year ago we shared with you that what BRC had learned about a site in Inwood where we had been planning to build a residence to heal and help those traumatized by homelessness. That the site, now occupied by an auto body shop, had been a cemetery for enslaved Black people, which had been subsequently destroyed, and that prior to that had been a Lenape ceremonial site. Learning this, BRC knew we had to pause and reflect. We concluded then that to walk away from this history of trauma would not serve the need that existed and exists to help heal it. And so we chose to engage and include, to learn and to listen and to learn. And we ask you to help us and to guide us with your wisdom. We listened to the voices of hundreds of stakeholders, the descendant communities, the current community, historians, spiritual leaders, and other experts, the workforce and clients of BRC, and so many other wise people. That process of inclusion and listening led to the establishment of the advisory group for the Inwood Sacred Site, which recognized the direct connection between the history of this site, its relationship to the persecution and dehumanization and marginalization of people and communities of color, and the root causes of homelessness today, which disproportionately impact communities of color. Recognizing these connections between our city's history of racism and the racism that still exists in our society, the advisory group recommended that BRC proceed with its residential program, but do so in a manner that incorporates the site's history, restores dignity to those who had been laid to rest there, and affords an opportunity and space for reflection and education. Now I am pleased to share that yesterday BRC took legal title to the site and is moving forward consistent with these recommendations, creating a residence to heal and help, an interpretive center where people can come and learn, and a memorial site where people can enter and peacefully reflect. While BRC will operate the residence, we will seek out appropriate partners to design and operate the memorial and interpretive center. We need to see all these programs. We look to see all these programs open in 2024. We would not be at this point had you not chosen to join us with this journey. We still have many more miles to go, but we have just taken a huge step forward. I'm grateful for your help and wisdom that makes this journey and this milestone possible, and look forward to continuing the journey with you. Thanks and best wishes, Muzzy Rosenblatt. So I don't know if folks have followed that specific site, but it looks like they're moving forward with good intentions and good purpose. So that is exciting.
Good news.
Yeah. Can that letter be sent out to the committee? I was
Yes,
really
yeah.
impressed, or I have been really impressed with every opportunity I've had to hear from them. Just the spirit of how they speak about it, the respect that they have given to the importance of these findings, and their goal in making sure that they are, continuing to be respectful and take the needs of the community into consideration. I've been impressed by it. So this is more of the same.
Yeah, I'd echo Aisha's comments. I back in, I think it was either March or April, at some point, there was a representative that came and spoke to the committee about it. And I actually attended one of those sessions. They kind of held these kind of listening sessions just to offer space to the community just to talk about it. And yeah, it was handled really well. And I really appreciate them making that space just to, again, allow community members to talk and reflect on the site. So with that, does anyone else have anything for new business? Okay, none. Old business?
I just wanted to make a inquiry in regards to where, or if there is any updates in regards to the Armory matter. Specifically, any ideas of when a public hearing is planned, and any other efforts around the resolution that resulted from the vote that happened, I believe it was in May. Yeah, I'm just curious to know where we are with that.
I did mention it at the last executive board meeting. I did as well 2 meetings ago, but our chair wasn't there for that one, so he was for the last one. It's on his radar. I told him I'd reach out to him just to see what his thinking was on that. Has there been any that you know of, any conversations or?
I believe GDS reached out to Ebenezer and Eleazar. I'm honestly, they contacted me today and wanted to brief me, but today my day was insane. I didn't really have space for it. So we're supposed to talk tomorrow, but I'm not really sure what those talks have been about specifically. And I'm really, interested in the broader matter, specifically the public hearing and engaging experts and those policymakers that are specialists in exactly this type of situation, where you have a facility such as this, where you have needs such as the needs that our community have. What is the best way to utilize that building? Is some of what I would like to see happening, at least even though we may not have a date or idea of when a public hearing is, but I think we should be moving in the direction of figuring out when one is held, who is going to be at the table, so that we can be as informed as possible, so that we can make the right decisions.
And I don't want to get into a whole conversation because I know there's been so many in the past, but I mean, I'm just curious, like, is there underutilization currently in the building? Like, are there like literally vacant offices or rooms?
So the genesis of this was I sat at that building and months upon months just would see like crickets, like you could hear a pin fall when it's not track season in that building. I ran youth programs where we partnered with organizations downtown that have similar facilities, and it's bustling. And I didn't understand why that's not the case. This is a building also that's around the corner from where I live. I've been in there when there was more programming. and a wider variety of organizations in the building as well. So having done the research, part of the issue is that the organization, which is the Armory Foundation that has been running the building, was not supposed to be running it the way that they were. There was also supposed to be allowance for more people and entities from the community to use the remaining spaces that actually that organization is not entitled to use, but had been using, pretty much like a corporate Airbnb for many years. And they also were not entitled to rent the building out at all. The contract actually barred that activity. So,
And as far as GDS is concerned, because I know they've been out of the building for a while,
mhm.
have they identified new space? Are they looking for new space?
They have not identified new space. They have been successful at pushing into certain programming to do like satellite kind of things, but not at the level of what their original space would have allowed for, and not even the same type of services that that space allowed for. So and it's my position that what has happened with GDS is a result of Gary Alltime being the whistleblower in that matter, which is unfortunate.
Okay, I was just curious. But I'll talk to Eleazar and see what he says. You know, again, being in this time of transition, I don't know, you know, if it's worth doing anything until after the new folks are in place.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think obviously Carmen De La Rosa's office, our council member elect, I'm pretty sure her district doesn't come into that. So she, you know, it would be a new issue sort of for her. I'm sure her office heard about it at various community board meetings, but it's never impacted her former district or current district directly. So, you know, I think it's worth getting folks up to speed and you know, seeing.
Actually, I went and I sat personally with Carmen previously, and made sure to have her off. I did a lot of legwork, engaging all stakeholders, including the offices of the elected, so that they would be at the meeting. It's actually, for me, in my 8 years, the highest attendance in a housing meeting that I've ever experienced was because I did the work of filling the room with those stakeholders. So her office is well aware.
I will say, I don't think GDS does themselves any favors when they bring dozens of people to the full board meeting, but if that's a tactic, you know, it is, I'm not going to tell people how to, you know, advocate, but I just don't in general.
So I've always been interested to hear how people that have come into the fold midway view that, just, you know, all the dynamics, but the reality of it is the mayor's office was sitting next to me in the first meeting, not the first meeting, because actually Gary had been engaging different people about the matter before this, but the first time I heard about it in depth was in a youth and education meeting. Alize Beal from the mayor's office was sitting next to me. The mayor's office admitted that the building was underutilized in that meeting 8 years ago, and admitted that they had a difficult time getting the data and the information about what proper governance at the building should have been. And me having heard that, it was the first resolution that I authored in this board, and it took 8 years to get a vote on it. So I think the part of those tactics were necessary, unfortunately, because of the level of suppression that took place within this board to prevent it from coming to the sunlight.
Got it.
which also included me being targeted in my position as chair of housing, as chair of IT, and being a member of the personnel committee. I got removed from 3 positions that obviously I didn't get to by twiddling my thumbs, but I was removed instantaneously from all 3 in the fold of this matter.
That's water under the bridge, I suppose.
For some of us, I guess.
Cool. Marriott, there was nothing else on the agenda, right? I can't.
No, that is all. And I'm assuming no one else has anything for old business. So with that, obviously, there's a lot of action points for some of us in regards to following up on, the Armory matter. We also talked about the following up to figure out what's happening with the inward rezoning task force. Some work around the community profiles, as well as around the climate change kind of town hall, so to speak. Seeing that there's nothing else on the agenda, can I get a motion to close the meeting?
Motion
Thanks,
I
Sarah.
second.
to adjourn.
Okay, at 8:52 p.m. Thank you, and thanks in advance to Bruce for preparing the minutes. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Thank you for a great meeting.
Thank you.
All
Good
right,
night,
thank
everybody.
you. Good night.
Good night.